Ancient Rome was powerful, advanced and far stranger than most people realize. Romans cleaned clothes using urine, heated buildings from beneath the floor, and even attempted cataract surgery using a needle. They also created concrete that could repair some of its own cracks. These stories might sound completely made up, but every one of them is true. So get ready, because here are 7 ancient Rome facts that sound fake, but are 100% real. Imagine taking your clothes to the laundry and discovering that the main cleaning ingredient was human urine. In ancient Rome, that was a real part of the washing process. Professional laundries were known as fulinicae, and the workers inside them were called fullers. Urine was collected and allowed to sit until bacteria began converting the urea into ammonia. That ammonia helped break down grease and dirt, making stale urine surprisingly useful for cleaning and processing woolen fabric. The clothing was placed inside large stone vats filled with the cleaning mixture. Workers then climbed into the vats and repeatedly stamped on the fabric with their bare feet, almost like crushing grapes to make wine. Afterwards, the cloth could be rinsed, beaten, brushed and treated further until it looked cleaner and brighter. Archaeologists have uncovered several of these ancient laundries, including examples at Pompeii, where the vats used by the fullers can still be seen. It may sound disgusting today, but for the Romans, urine was a valuable resource that could turn dirty fabric into clean, finished clothing. Taking your clothes to a professional laundry where workers wash them using stale urine sounds unbelievable, but it is absolutely true. At first glance, this ancient Roman mosaic is surprisingly modern. It shows a group of women wearing two-piece outfits that strongly resemble bikinis, but they were not preparing for a day at the beach. The mosaic was discovered at the Villa Romana del Casale in Sicily, a luxurious Roman residence famous for its remarkably preserved floor mosaics. Dating from around the 4th century AD, the scene shows women taking part in several athletic activities. Some appear to be running, while others throw a discus, lift hand weights or play with a ball. One woman is even shown receiving a victory crown and palm branch, suggesting that the athletes may have been competing against one another. Their clothing consisted of a chest band and a brief lower garment, giving them an appearance that seems almost 2,000 years ahead of its time. These outfits were practical sportswear other than modern swimwear, allowing greater freedom of movement during exercise. The mosaic offers rare evidence that at least some women in the Roman world participated in organized physical activity and athletic competition. Ancient Roman women exercising in outfits that look remarkably similar to modern bikinis. Sounds unbelievable, but it is absolutely true. Nearly 2,000 years before modern central heating, some Roman buildings already had warm floors and heated walls. The system was called a hypocaust. Instead of placing a fire directly inside the room, Roman builders raised the floor on dozens of short brick or stone pillars. This created an empty space underneath. A furnace was then lit outside the room, and hot air traveled beneath the raised floor, gradually warming the tiles above. In more advanced buildings, the heat also flowed through hollow channels inside the walls, spreading warmth throughout the room. Hypocausts were especially common in Roman bathhouses, where different rooms needed different temperatures. The hottest rooms were normally positioned closest to the furnace, while cooler rooms were placed farther away. Some wealthy villas also had the system, although it required large amounts of fuel and workers to keep the fire burning. The surviving ruins can still be seen today, with rows of small pillars revealing where the original heated floors once stood. Walking across a warm floor inside a Roman building almost 2,000 years ago. Sounds unbelievable. But it is absolutely true. When archaeologists uncovered Pompeii, they didn't just find temples, villas, and beautiful works of art. They also found thousands of messages written and scratched across the city's walls, and many of them sound surprisingly familiar. People wrote love notes, insults, jokes, personal boasts, and simple messages announcing that they had been there. Sports fans recorded the victories of their favorite gladiators, while businesses advertised their services and political supporters painted campaign messages encouraging neighbors to vote for particular candidates. Some graffiti appeared inside homes, shops, taverns, and public buildings. There were drawings too, including animals, ships, human figures, and gladiators fighting one another. These messages were not created only by wealthy scholars. They revealed the voices of ordinary residents, travelers, workers, and customers going about their daily lives. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in AD 79, volcanic material buried Pompeii and preserved many of its decorated walls. That disaster accidentally created an extraordinary record of what people really thought, joked about, and argued over nearly 2,000 years ago. An ancient Roman city filled with graffiti, gossip, advertisements, and rude jokes. Sounds unbelievable. But it is absolutely true. Imagine losing your sight to a cataract nearly 2,000 years ago and being told that a Roman surgeon might be able to help. Roman medical writer Aulus Cornelius Celsus described an operation now known as cataract couching in his work, De Medicina. The patient was seated facing the light, while the surgeon carefully inserted a fine needle through the side of the eye. The cloudy lens was not removed. Instead, the surgeon used the needle to push it downward, moving it away from the center of vision. If the procedure succeeded, light could once again reach the back of the eye, sometimes restoring a limited amount of sight. But this was nothing like safe modern cataract surgery. The patient could still have blurred vision, and the operation carried serious risks, including inflammation, infection, and permanent blindness. Even so, the description shows that Roman practitioners understood enough about the eye to attempt a delicate operation centuries before microscopes, anesthetic, or sterile operating rooms existed. A Roman surgeon trying to restore someone's sight using only a needle. Sounds unbelievable. But it is absolutely true. Some Roman concrete appears to have had a remarkable ability. When small cracks formed, parts of the material could actually help seal them again. Roman builders mixed volcanic ash, stone, water, and lime to create concrete for harbors, aqueducts, temples, and enormous buildings. For years, researchers noticed tiny white chunks inside surviving samples. These were once dismissed as signs of poor mixing. But scientists now believe these lime-rich pieces, known as limeclasts, may have been created deliberately through a hot mixing process using quicklime. When a crack opened and rainwater seeped inside, the lime could react with the moisture and release calcium. That calcium then recrystallized as calcium carbonate, creating new mineral material that filled the crack before it spread farther. Researchers tested modern concrete made using a similar technique. After deliberately cracking it and running water through it, the crack sealed within around 2 weeks. A comparison sample without quicklime remained open. This doesn't mean Roman concrete was indestructible, but it may help explain why some Roman structures have survived for nearly 2,000 years. Concrete capable of repairing some of its own cracks long before modern engineering. Sounds unbelievable. But it is absolutely true. In ancient Rome, The color purple was more than a fashion choice. It was a public display of wealth, power, and social rank. The most valuable purple dye was produced from small sea snails found around the Mediterranean. Workers collected the snails, extracted a tiny gland from each one, and processed the liquid through a long, unpleasant-smelling procedure. Thousands of snails could be needed to create enough dye for a single garment, making deep purple cloth extraordinarily expensive. Because of its cost, most ordinary Romans could never afford it. Senators wore a purple stripe on their togas, while victorious generals and powerful rulers could appear in garments containing far more of the color. As Roman imperial power grew, certain purple shades and styles became increasingly associated with the emperor. In some periods, rules even restricted who was allowed to wear the most prestigious purple clothing. The dye was famous for producing a rich color that could become brighter rather than fading as the fabric aged. A color made from thousands of crushed sea snails, worth so much that it became a symbol of imperial authority. Sounds unbelievable. But it is absolutely true.